Heidi ho, everybody. Welcome to our first time homebuyer brunch and learn. Hello to everybody at home. Hello to everybody here. Make sure you have your brunch cocktails. No need to take notes. We're actually recording this time. I think I did it right. And we will put it up on our YouTube page. Lots of interesting things are going up on our YouTube page. We're dispersing things weekly. So subscribe, you'll learn some stuff. There'll be some, usually me doing something silly. So for your enjoyment. So I'm Capri Dessecker. This is my office. My team is here. We have Neil, who is actually my husband also. He was my first agent. We have Whitney, who, if you've corresponded with me, ever did a transaction with me, you would get a lot of Whitney emails, which are wonderful. Jess is our office extraordinaire. She does all of our tech support and she does our conveyancing. And so you'll get to know Jess as well if you come to the office. Stephanie is my next agent. She is my heart. I love her. Justin is our newest agent, but still almost 3 years. And he is also wonderful. He is our Reddit expert. So if you have any questions about Reddit, you go to Justin, and houses too. That's a rundown of our team. I didn't miss anybody. Thank you all for coming. So I'll give you a quick intro. This is the South Philly branch of RE/MAX One Realty. We have our main office is in Society Hill, so we span the city. We have 2 in the Northeast, Feasterville and Grant. We have 3 in New Jersey, Haddonfield, Collingswood, and Morristown. So if South Philly or Philadelphia proper is not somewhere that you're looking, we can help you pretty much anywhere. There are 120,000 RE/MAX agents across the world. So if you need to buy a house in Jakarta, where one of my clients lives, we can find you a RE/MAX agent. So just because you're moving outside of the city, we can always help you. We can interview agents for you. We can hook you up with the best agent possible. So I'll tell you a little bit about me. The office opened in 2019. So we've been here for a few years, all during COVID. We might not have had the door open, but we've been here the whole time. I became an agent in 2004, and I've been licensed in full-time ever since. During the recession is when I became a first-time homebuyer expert. During the recession, things got weird. Like, people were trying to take advantage of people. There was, sellers having a hard time selling, and it was like very sad. And I thought, oh, I'm getting out of the real estate business. People are taking advantage of it. It's slow. It's not fun anymore. It was hard for everybody. And then I realized, what else am I going to do? Because I love this. And I said, who do I like working with the most? And when I went back through all my past clients, I realized all the ones that I loved working with the most were first-time home buyers. I bought my first house at 23. I was in real estate for 6 months, and I got evicted from my apartment, and my team leader told me that I should just buy something. And I'm like, what? She's like, Capri, you're in real estate. You should just buy something. So when I bought my first house, it took me 12 days from start to finish. I saw it. Back then, there was crazy mortgage stuff happening, and it took me 12 days. And I remember everything so clearly. And it's something that you feel like you can feel alone in. It's hard, you're scared to make the wrong decision. And so I always try to remember that. And then my team members also I train them all to operate exactly how I would. We try to be patient and compassionate and understanding, because we've all been there. We've all, seen the process happen. And we want to make sure that we can be as helpful to you and helping you make the proper decision. So we don't need to move fast. You don't have to settle in 12 days. We're not counting our commission the day we meet you. What we want to do is create relationships with you guys, so that not only do you have a best experience, but you bring your friend, you tell your relatives, and then we can create this great family where we all kind of, refer to each other. And then we have this full team. We can all specialize in different areas, different locations. But the one thing that I like to tell people is, we specialize is the person, not necessarily the area. So some people want like area experts. We are very well versed in a lot of areas, but we kind of specialize in the person that needs our help. We don't want to just look at you as a commission. We want to be able to take somebody who needs help. We have a lot of clients that older people who have a hard time letting go of their homes, and there's real estate agents who just want to push them out because they want the listing. We understand that, especially the South Philly people who get attached to their homes, sometimes they need more hand holding. So we kind of specialize in like I said, the person, not necessarily the area. So quickly about the process, an overview. The first step is not to save 20%. Everybody, they wait until they have as much money as they possibly could have, and then they call us. But you could have been in a house years ago, literally. And Dennis will talk more about that. But you don't have to save 20%. I would prefer that you reach out to us the second that a house is a glimmer in your eye. I don't care if you're thinking about buying a house 3 years down the road, that's when you call us. I mean, obviously, if you want to buy in a month, you can reach out to us too, and we can move quickly. But the sooner you get to us, the quicker we can educate you and get you on the path that you need to be. You don't need to know exactly what you want. When you decide that you might want to buy a house, you reach out to us, and we can do, we can do in person now, but Zoom is great because we can share the screen with you. We can go over estimated closing costs, but we can help you figure out, how much, if you have a price range of 200 to 300, but you only want to be in a house for 2 to 3 years, going to 300 might not be the best bet. So each house, each situation, each client is going to warrant something different. And so I really want you to be able to talk it through with us, and things might change too. I think I have somebody in this room who's, gone and learned a lot through this process so far. So set up an appointment with us, get pre-approved. We have preferred lenders, and it's important. I mean, you could go to your bank, but you can go to your bank, but having a preferred lender is great. Dennis is local. He understands the market in this area. If he screws up, then I hang him by his toenails. So if it's a bank, I can't get a hold of these people. Not like Dennis is going to screw up. No. We really like him a lot. But point being is that we have a relationship, and he's going to do everything he can to make me happy, and our team members happy, and our clients happy. And so it's really good to be connected to the lender. Also, when we make an offer, if the real estate agent on the other side says like, hey, do you know this lender? Are you going to be able to settle on time? That's a question that I can't answer. If it's Citizens or if it's TD, probably not. You're probably not going to settle on the day that you had selected. So that's unfortunate. So having a preferred lender is really important. And so we have one here that you can talk to. When we meet with you, and we have a home inspector here too that we'll be introducing you to as well. So how much, when I meet with you, I'm going to ask you 2 questions. One is, how much do you want to devote to the purchase? Is it $3,000? Is it $300,000? We have first-time home buyers who run the gamut. So don't feel uncomfortable. We can, if you want to devote $10,000 to your purchase, I help you figure out where that goes. How is that set up? Are we going to do seller's assist? Are we going to do closing costs? Are we going to put as little money down as possible because you want to add a powder room down the road? So every house is going to warrant a different situation, but I'm going to ask you, how much do you want to devote to the purchase? Don't worry about the percentage down. Just worry about how much money you have besides your emergency funds. And then I'm going to ask you, what's your ideal monthly payment? So you could give me a range, you can tell me the maximum, and then from there, we'll work backwards and find you the house that fits. We'll talk about hashing out your goals, your timelines, your price range. We'll go over estimated closing costs. And this is the same for all of our team members. We all do it a little bit differently, but we accomplish the same things. We set up a search for you. Finally, once you get pre-approved, we look at properties in person. We'll tell you, we're not going to be the agents who are going to say, oh my God, you want this house? Look, it's so beautiful. Look at the granite countertops. I honestly, like, I'm not known for my style. So I'm not going to be the one talking about all these beautiful things. What I'm going to do is, and what we're going to do is, we're going to point out all the things wrong with the house that we can see. And if you say, Capri, Neil, Stephanie, Justin, we hear you. We hear that there's potentially a structural issue, and we're willing to make an offer, and we'll have the home inspector check it out to make sure that, and find out suggestions on repairs. So as long as you hear what we're saying and you feel comfortable to purchase, we know a lot of the risks up front. We're going to not try to scare you, but we're going to try to help you look beyond just the aesthetics and really look at the home and the bones, and we're going to teach you how to do it too, so that if you go on a open house without us, you can do your initial inspections as well. Once you make an offer on a property, we'll get an updated pre-approval, make sure we have all the right prices. Your offer gets accepted. We do home inspections. We find homeowners insurance. We talk about home warranties. We talk about the importance of title insurance and why you need it. All the expenses up front. There should be nothing that's a surprise when you deal with us. We have a settlement book that we give to you at closing. We'll help you keep track of everything. You do not have to remember anything when you work with us, because A, I repeat myself a lot. And B, Whitney, Jess are going to keep you on, and the agents are going to keep you on task as you go along. So you should never feel alone. And our goal is to kind of be one step ahead of you the entire time. Once you settle on your property, our phone numbers do not change. Sometimes we threaten, but we won't change our phone number. So we're going to be with you as long as you own that house. We're going to be with you. We're going to check in with you regularly. We're going to make sure you put the tape on, the foil back tape on your ductwork. And we're going to be there all the time to help you. If you get a lump sum, Aunt Millie passed away and left you $500. What are you going to do with the $500? We can go through your home inspection and tell you where best to spend that money. So we are with you for the entire time you own the property. So we'll help you through, there's homestead exemptions, there's tax abatements. So we're going to help you understand all of that, because you could have the same property, same $300,000 property, and if it has a tax abatement, or it's in an area where the taxes are considered relatively high, that can make a huge difference on actually what you can afford. We will always help you get through the process in terms of lending. The reason why you do not need to put 20% down anymore is because rates are really low. The interest that you pay, if you put down less than 20%, is tax deductible, at least for now. There's benefits to it. It's a really small amount. When our parents were buying houses, the interest rates were 18%. And that's why it was so important to put every penny you had down on a house. So it's just not the case anymore. We'll talk to you about how to remove PMI over time, if you make renovations, if your neighborhood appreciates. So I know I just threw a bunch of stuff at you, and I just want you to take a little bit of this information, understand that we are the experts. We walk you through the whole process. You don't need to know anything. We actually prefer that you know nothing, because it makes our job easier, and we wouldn't have a job if you knew something. So come in as a blank slate. We will certainly answer all your questions and hold your hands the entire time. That is a quick rundown of the agent portion. So any questions before I pass you on to the lender?
You guys interact much with each other. If someone has a question that you're not sure of the answer to, do you reach out to other agents?
So Harris, our home inspector, asked a really good question. Like, if there's, I've been in the business a long time, and the other agents are very experienced as well. But Harris said, if we don't know the answer, can we interact with each other? So we have team meetings weekly where we bring up challenges. Even though I trained all the agents, the way they go about things might be completely different. Neil, especially, he lives with me. He learned everything by listening to me on my clients, but we do things the exact opposite. And depending on the scenario, it always works out that, thankfully. So we do talk amongst
When you
ourselves.
say we do things the exact opposite, what you mean is sometimes we come at it from different angles. And then I asked her what she would do, and I was like, oh, I was thinking about doing this other thing. So to answer your question, yeah, it's good to get someone else's perspective because sometimes her opinion, I'm like, oh, that's a better way to go about trying to achieve the same goal. Sometimes it's a stylistic approach. When she says we do things completely different, she means from a style standpoint, personality standpoint. Like we're having this conversation now. What I'm saying is clear. What she's saying is not clear.
Hope you guys at home could hear that. Yes, so we are stylistically different. I like to wear navy blue and black together. He thinks it's a faux pas.
Unless it's denim. Denim is the exception.
So just to give you a rundown on what's happening next, we're going to invite Dennis Callan here. He's our lender. He's killing it on the rates. So, we'll give you options. You don't have to use Dennis, but Dennis is actually offering to pay for your appraisal if you use him. So one of the benefits of attending today is that you don't have to pay for your appraisal. That's correct.
Absolutely.
The real estate agents are paying for up to $500 of your home inspection if you attend online or if you attend in person, and Harris is paying for your termites. So you have like $1,000 just by spending time, spending a couple of hours with us and drinking and eating for free. So I'm going to turn it over to Dennis. Thank you so much.
Oh wait, this is the clapping portion.
Really? Hello, Internet world. Everyone here. My name is Dennis Callan. I'm the owner and founder of Colonial Mortgage Advisors, and I'm a broker in the area. And I've been in business for, it's crazy, 22 years now. And the owner of this company had a previous company, and now this company for the last year and a half. And it's been an incredible ride. And I'm so thrilled to be here. So thank you very much. They can see me. Can they chat with us and tell us if they can hear? I need to speak louder.
If
you're
there's
watching.
any questions, Jess has an eye on it.
Perfect. So a little bit about my company. We're a broker. So Capri mentioned the banks. Don't just go to the brokers. The brokers can shop all the banks for you, and they can know. I pull up a rate sheet and I see 30 different lenders and what their rates are. So we'll make that job easier. We'll go right, find the best, cheapest ones for you. And a lot of times with me as a broker, since I own the company, at the end of the day, I'm not going to lose. It sounds cocky, but it's the way it is with our rates. If Capri says, hey, my buyer's got some guy from Iowa and he's got this really low rate, do you mind just matching that so that I can get him to someone I trust and we're not worried at the last minute that this guy in Iowa is going to deliver? Yeah, I'm going to make it happen. So for us, we'd love to I'm a pretty competitive guy. I don't like to lose. So if you have someone out there like, let's see if Dennis can beat it, pretty good chance we'll be able to help you with that. But that's something down the road. And obviously rates are important, but for you guys, the first-time home buyers here, really just the process is what we're here to kind of figure out today, and how we get to that point of, okay, let's talk about rate. So a couple things, I have this pamphlet on the on your seats here, just kind of breaking down where we're going to go with this first. First off, just the advantages of owning. Obviously, everyone knows that renting and owning and what kind of wealth we can create in ownership. How to understand your credit, explore the different loan options we have, understand the pre-approval process, and then obviously we'll answer any questions you have. So I'm just curious, I know we have a couple of people in the room. Is this everyone's first, obviously their first time, but has anyone further in the process that they've made offers or been pre-approved yet? Just so I got been pre-approved? Okay, no pre-approved yet? No, okay, great. Just trying to get a feel. So yeah, so the differences in renting and buying are obviously huge. I'm a real estate investor myself. I own a bunch of properties and got into them early. And just by doing that, now having some of them for 10 years, being able to refinance those and the equity that's created and building more, allowing me to buy some, this just shows the difference, exactly what this graph shows. So if you look at the difference between the blue and the purple there, I'm sorry, this is the page 2. Yeah, I guess 310. So it's going to show that if your rent right now is $1,000 $98. I'm getting more like a ghost. And then your mortgage payment. So I'm sorry, buying, you're technically in the beginning, your payment could be higher than your rate, but after time, you'll see that the purple is going to continue to go up because the landlord is going to continue to raise rents. Rents gone up in this area 10% over the last year. It's outrageous. Well, for me as a landlord, I love it, but for as the tenants, it's crazy what some of these places are going for in the area right now. So you can see after time that the only reason your mortgage payment's ever going to change is because your taxes went up or your homeowner's insurance went up. Your mortgage payment, the principal interest, that's going to be the same for 30 years, 20 years, as long as you have it. So you're in control of that. You're not in control of your condo. If you're in a condo and your landlord says, oh, our condo dues just skyrocketed, now we got to pass that on to you, and your payment just went up $150 for a little tiny apartment. So you're in control of this. So stop paying someone else's and letting them get rich on your dollar. So over that life of that, I think that on that 7 years, you've gained $21,000 in equity. And then say after that period, you wanted to go sell, you're going to pay some commissions. But if you flip to kind of the next page, it kind of breaks all that down of the net gain you would have. So you're going to sell the house, you're going to have commissions and closing costs and things like that. But over that 10-year period, you've made $82,000 where in renting, and obviously this is a very generic example, you're going to have maybe some heating or plumbing issues or things like that, they're going to knock into that. But if we're just comparing apples to apples and everything goes fine, even if it's half of that, that's still a huge difference for you guys. So I think it just really illustrates the difference in how much you're costing yourself by renting and letting you pay someone else's mortgage. So you can dig into that, and happy to. Does that make sense to everyone? Is that pretty? Everyone kind of knows that. I'm not spend too much time on that part. The first part, what's going to happen in the process is you guys are going to reach out to Capri and say, Capri, I want to buy a house. And she's going to be like, awesome, let's go get you connected with our lender and see if we can make that happen. If it's going to be next month, we can go, or maybe things aren't set up perfectly and maybe we have to make a 2-year plan because we got to fix some things. So that's where I jump in. And typically the best way for me is the agents will shoot me a text, introduce on in a group text or a group email, and I'm usually pretty responsive and we'll get right back and say, hey, let's set up a call and we'll talk on the phone for a few minutes, and then we'll turn you over to our online application, and then we can really get into it. And some of the stuff when we're in that online application is they're going to look at your credit. We're going to know your employment situation. We want to see what your income is, what kind of liabilities you have, and how much money you have saved for the down payment. So first part of that is, and the most important, is going to be credit. So everyone would imagine thinks they have credit. They're trying to establish credit. They maybe have car loans, student loans, credit cards. And a lot of times on that call, when the realtor introduces us, like, whoa, I don't want to pull my credit yet. I don't want to pull my credit. I don't want that going down. And that's the farthest thing from the truth. The actual, here it says it's 10, and I probably need to adjust that. It's actually in the algorithm, a credit inquiry makes up less than 5% of the total algorithm. So if you have good credit, the top bucket is going to be 740 and above. So if you're in that 740 bucket, an inquiry on your credit is not going to make a difference. Like if you have 770 credit, one inquiry is not. Even if you have 640 credit, which is easily getting a loan at that point, it's not going to make a difference. If you're dropping a point, it's not going to make a difference. So people lenders use that as a thing to protect themselves, like, oh, don't let everyone else check your credit, just let me check your credit. So it's a little game that they play so that you don't go check the competition. What actually happens is you have 10 inquiries in a 30-day period, and it's only going to count as one inquiry. So you can go have 10 lenders pull your credit, and that as long as, because they'll categorize it for you, and they'll see like it was a mortgage company that pulled, or it was a car company that pulled. And as long as it's in that same field, it's only going to count as one inquiry. So don't get stuck on that. What I actually recommend is get pre-approved once with one lender, and then when you're under contract, that's when you really want to start shopping around to all the different lenders, and shopping the rates, because at that point you can hold their lenders' feet to the fire on that rate, because anyone can say, if you're 3 months out, or who knows, oh yeah, our rate's going to be 275 today. You can't call them on that because you can't lock in. If you get pre-approved and then go find a house, they find you a beautiful house, you're ready to go, we're on the contract, we know our closing is in 45 days from now, and then you call the lender, hey, I'm ready to lock today, and you make your calls to her preferred lenders, what can you do to me today? They better deliver on what they're going to say. So that's the time you really need to shop around. In the pre-approval stage, that's not really the time you need to have everyone checking into your information. That's just one lender, get the pre-approval letter, and then shop for rates later. So I think that's just a safer way. So credit, I'll jump back to that. So payment history makes up the majority of that. You're obviously paying your stuff on time. One thing that people don't know a lot about is that if your credit cards are maxed, even if you pay them off every month, if I take a snapshot of your credit and your credit limit's only $5,000, but every month you're paying that off, and that month you had a couple big expenses and you used $4,700 of that $5,000, that's going to negatively affect your credit report, your credit score. So if you're not using, if you have smaller limits, you actually want to call your creditor today and say, hey, listen, I always pay on time. Do you mind bumping me up to $10,000 or whatever it is? Because that will have a big impact on your credit score. Because everyone's like, oh, how can I get my scores to jump? Well, I don't have a lot of money to pay my debts off, but we can kind of go around that and have the creditors increase your limit. And if your utilization is, the best way to have it is at 30%. So if you have a $10,000 limit, you never want to try, obviously it's not always possible, but you want to try to not have your credit card balance be above $3,000. So that utilization wants to stay below $30,000 or $3,000 to get that 30% limit. And that's a quick fix that when people say, oh, I've got messed up credit, but I always pay on time, they don't understand why. I'm like, perfect, let's go pay this one off. And we have calculators that's really pretty cool that if they say, hey, we have $10,000 to play with, which one should I pay off? I can run it through this calculator that we have, and we'll say, pay this one down to this, pay this one down to this, pay this one down to this, and it will make your credit score jump to this. And it's a really cool tool if we need to get people qualified or have their.
Jump in,
Sure.
So the thing that I thought was really interesting about like how much you can get pre-approved for is they look at your monthly expenses.
Mhm.
So you can also call your credit card companies if they won't increase your your limits. You can ask to reduce your rates. You can call every 6 months to reduce your rates because you might have an American Express both, and a Visa. If your American Express is the same amount, but your rate is higher, or if your monthly payment is higher, that's going to reduce you from how much you can afford.
Your buying power. Yeah.
So like if they look at your monthly expenses and then adds it up, as opposed to looking at the total amounts, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. No, that's a great point. So we'll touch on the debt or your debt to income ratios. But yes, people are like, oh, I have so much debt, I'm not going to qualify. It doesn't matter how much your debt is, it's what those payments are. Because we're talking about, we'll jump ahead here to your debt to income ratios, your expenses going out versus the money coming in. You could have $100,000 in debt, but if that ratio fits in our box, you're good to go. So that doesn't matter. As long as your scores are good, it doesn't matter how much your debt is. It's the actual monthly payment. That's what we're more concerned about. And that's the questions that I'll ask in a quick conversation when we first speak. So outstanding debt is a piece of that. Credit length, if you just establish credit or have no history, your scores are going to be lower. So you want to don't close credit cards, keep them open, use them maybe occasionally and just put a gas or grocery bill on it. But I would never, unless you have like 30 credit cards, I would never close an account. The creditors will eventually close it for you, but I would never close a credit. It's nice to have that long established history on your credit. Credit mix. So you want to have probably at least 2 revolving accounts because that's really important to establish credit. That makes a bigger impact than instead of like a car loan or student loan, something like that. Revolving debts, paying them off every month is really important. And then the pursuit of credit is kind of what I mentioned of the inquiries. It doesn't make a big difference. All right, any questions there? Credit's a really huge piece of this. Yeah, sure.
So say if you allow a credit card to close your account, even if it was just after a year, does that affect, what percentage would you say estimate would affect your credit score?
It's tough because it's not huge, but you want to continue to keep that if you can. They're not going to close it. Your creditor is not going to close your credit. And I'm sorry for people at home. She asked if they closed your credit card off after a year, what impact would that have? And the creditor is not going to close your account after a year. It's probably like 5 or 7 years that if you're not doing anything, they'll reach out to you and say something like that. But you can use it again. Like if it's a store department card, maybe you close that out. But if it's like a Visa and you want to put gas or groceries on it, that's what I would just keep it
Just
open.
like
Just
carry
to,
like a 20 or 40 and pay it off each month.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
If you've had the credit card for a long time, I would say, because
Yeah.
like I have a credit card that I don't like to use,
Right.
but it's my oldest credit card. And that's the one I don't want to get rid of because that gives me, I have like 17 years of credit on it. So if it's a newer one, it probably doesn't have the same effect as it would.
Right, it's a new one. so
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, that's a
I
great
was
point.
like,
Great question.
close it out.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's fine.
Thanks.
All right, so then the credit scoring is on the next page. And as I mentioned, 740 and above is going to, from the lender side, is going to be the top buck. And then we can go all the way down actually to 580 within what's called an FHA loan. And we'll talk about that program later. But typically, you're going to have great rates all the way down and not see a huge swing in rates until you start going below on the top programs, maybe about to a 680. So even if you have low credit, let's still set up a time and talk because we work with some great credit repair companies and we can get you in the right direction. We never want to say no. It's like, maybe it's just not right now, but let's set a plan to get you into something a couple years down the road. Or because these credit repair, depending on what it is, they can get that up pretty quick. Sure.
When it comes to building credit, I'd heard two theories, and I'm wondering if you have a sense of which one is accurate. One is that you're just really consistent in paying off in full every single month, and then another theory says, no, you don't want to pay it off in full. You want to make consistent payments, but you want to leave just a little bit of a balance, and that's actually better.
Yeah, if you're trying to get your scores, like to keep your scores high, paying it off every month is going to be fine. But they want to see that there's some utilization on there. So yes, leaving that little bit if you're trying to bump it up quickly. Like if you're already at a 770 and you're fine, paying it off to 0 every month. But if you're lower and trying to build that up, yeah, leaving that little bit on there is going to help you. Just the way I've seen it in those calculators.
Is there like a percentage that's ideal, like you want to leave like 10% unpaid? Or
Not that I've
25%?
seen, just like 5, like it doesn't have, they just don't want it to 0 because sometimes they'll think that it's inactive and they want to see movement on that card. So even if you left like $10 on it, that's totally fine. All right. All right, so we did credit. So how much can I afford? So the thing that we're looking for is we have credit, then the other piece is the debt to income ratio. So that's how much money you have going out over how much money you have coming in. So for simple math, if you make, we'll just say we're crushing it and we're making $10,000 a month and you have $3,000 in expenses, your debt to income ratio is 30%. So those ratios typically for the lender can go with some programs as high as 55%, but typically you want to be including your new mortgage payment because that's going to get included in there. You want to be around 45% is a kind of a good number, but with some compensating factors, we can go as high as 50%. I'm sorry. Sure. So your income or your expenses going out. So whatever's showing on credit. So it's not your cell phone bill, things like that. So thank you. It's student loans, car loans, minimum payments on credit cards, and then whatever your new housing expense is going to be. So your principal and interest, taxes, and homeowners insurance, all in that number that's going out over your income. So if that number is 3,000 going out over your $10,000 income coming in, your debt to income ratio is 30%. That make sense? Great. So we went through that. So this is pretty conservative, but 31.43, that's great, but we're easily getting people on the conventional loan 45, 46, 47% debt to income ratio. And a lot of times it's funny because people will call and I can get them a pre-approved for way more than you think, like by their income. A lot of times what holds people back is their down payment, but these debt to income ratios with people's income allow a lot of people to qualify for way more home. Like I say, oh, you can qualify for 500. Well, it's usually the person who's like, no, I only want 300. We don't want to put them in that bad spot. So like how the whole meltdown got started. But yeah, the debt to income ratio helps. Yeah.
When you're calculating the debt to income ratio, let's say, because I think a lot of people are concerned, like, oh, I have these huge student loan payments or amounts, like to the debt to pay, or a huge credit card balance. But I don't know if you mentioned it, but when you're doing the debt to income ratio, it's based solely on the minimum payment, right, for the student loans and the credit. So like, if you maybe you have $100,000 in student loans, but if your monthly minimum payment is what, 200 or something, then that's all that counts against you. It's not this huge weighty, you know, 100,000, 150,000, or this $40,000 credit card bill. It's whatever your minimum monthly payment is.
Correct. And we're
Your
having a
wife
lot.
just asked that question.
What?
Your wife just asked that question.
To him.
It's so the student loan is a great piece to hear. So I know you guys are coming at different angles, but we're
Yeah.
gonna get to the same
Same
spot. So Neil's question about some student loans, because we have actually one guy the other day came with $400,000. He's paid his whole way through, or just from medical school. And what's happening is he saying, oh, it's all deferred now with the new government programs, and it's zero. I don't know anything. Well, what happens is on the credit report, we have to use 0.5% of that amount if it's a zero payment. So I had to push him off until January, because that payment is actually going to be lower in January when it starts again, based off his income-based repayment. But yes, it is going to be the minimum amount. So you could have $600,000 in student loans. If your income-based repayment says you only owe $500 a month, yeah, that's no problem at all.
So
So-
just to clarify, it's the payment that you're making, not the overall like balance. Of
Yeah,
what-
the balance doesn't matter. And a lot of people, and then on top of that is, if you're paying zero, we have to use 0.5% of the balance. But in January, next or 2 months, people who have student loans are gonna start repaying. They're gonna be forced to start repaying for them again. So we'll know exactly what the payment is. We got a big eye roll over here. That's why on our student loans. So what is and how am I doing on time? Am I 3 minutes? All right, fast forward. What does my mortgage payment include? It's going to be your principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. And then if you put less than 20% down, it's also going to include what's called mortgage insurance. So that was the big thing why everyone thinks, oh, I want to put 20% down, because if you're putting less than that down, you have PMI, the private mortgage insurance. And in the past, that used to be a really big number. It could add $200-300 to your payment. But now there's probably 5 mortgage insurance companies are all at each other's throats trying to get all this business. And that number's really come down. And some lenders have even gotten it further down than what you would have access to at the banks. And we have some really great PMI programs. And actually, as first-time home buyers, you would even get reduced PMI. So PMI is not this big scary number that's going to defer you from, or dissuade you from going to buy something and make it worthwhile to wait till you have 20% down, because financially it wouldn't make sense. Who knows what the rates could be in 4 years? It could easily cancel out the money that you're saving by not paying PMI. Your rate could be that much higher, and it's at the end of the day, it's the same thing. So yeah, don't wait for that. You'll have a chance to actually go to 3% down as first-time home buyers. Condo fees will also be included in those debt to income ratio numbers if you're looking at a condo. So a couple loan programs. I'll just touch on some of the ones that we'll probably most likely look at. If you're buying in the city, you're not getting USDA. That grant program, I probably should just take that out. We're not seeing much of that around here. VA loans, do we have any veterans? No, so we won't touch on that. So really the main 2 options you're going to have is a conventional loan or an FHA loan. FHA loan we use for people that are on that lower end of that credit score. If you're probably below 660, we're going to probably look at FHA. It's a great program. It actually has cheaper interest rates than a conventional, but the issue is that mortgage insurance is never going to drop off that loan. So that's just something that to think about that PMI is a bit higher. The negative is you have it for the life of the loan. Most likely, if you're staying in the house, you would refinance into a conventional loan later down the road. Good thing about the FHA loan is it allows for the seller to contribute more towards the closing costs, 6% instead of 3% on a conventional loan. We haven't seen many sellers assist with the market being so crazy recently where they're helping towards the closing costs, but now things are settling some, and our shrewd negotiators here can help get some sellers assist. And then the conventional loan is, and actually, so the FHA is going to allow that higher debt to income ratio up to 55%. A conventional loan is probably, we can get that down to 680 as long as we can get some mortgage insurance. And then, I apologize, I missed that. The new loan limit here is actually going to be 625,000. So if you're buying your first house at 625, I got to meet you, but but that is the new loan limit. Over that, it's going to be what's called a jumbo loan. And then there's renovation loans, and that's a whole another story. And I'm not sure as a first-time home buyer, you want to go down that rabbit hole on day one. So where do we go from here? Just give me a call. Seriously, like, no, they're not wasting anyone's. Like, oh, I don't want to waste your time. First-time home buyers are so apologetic. It cracks me up. Like, oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I have another question. That's what we're here for. Let us earn our money. We get all do well here, and we're happy to share. So I don't want to take up too much time. I'm probably over. And thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Dennis. That was awesome and really helpful. Everybody at home, you'll get virtual swag bags, so you'll get your coupons for all your free stuff. Dennis will send us via, the interwebs. He'll send us the brochure that you guys didn't see, so you'll get that probably on Monday. So you're not missing anything. So now I'm going to bring up a very special guest, my home inspector, Harris. It's Engineers for Home Inspection. Harris is the person who taught me basically everything I know, and all of us, what we know about, maintaining a home and what's a concern, what's not a concern, and how to look for important things. So without ado, here's Harris.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Harris Gross. I'm a home inspector. I've been inspecting homes for 17 years now. I also have an engineering degree and, importantly, an engineering license, and that separates me from a lot of other home inspectors. And it makes life a little bit easier in some ways, because if there's a structural problem, you don't have to look for a structural engineer to come and address the issue. So I thought I would start by going over an introductory speech that I do on every home inspection. And that is, what is a home inspection? Does anybody here any of the first-time buyers want to take a guess at it? See what's wrong with the house. That's about right. And that can be complicated, and it can be complex and overwhelming. So one of the ways that I'll say it is that you want to understand the condition of the home. I overthink things as my natural state. And so I've had a lot of time to think about where all this goes. And one way to look at the condition is, when it's new, maybe it's at its best point, and then sometimes something can, fail, and it goes to a failure point or a low point. And then resources and effort should be put in to bring it back up. So that's an important part of understanding the condition of the home. There's never a home that I'll go through where there's nothing wrong. There's always something wrong. So when you come to a home inspection, be prepared to be a little bit overwhelmed. And if there's a lot of issues going on, by the time that we're done, you won't know how to get to your car at that point. So sometimes bringing somebody with who can listen to what's being heard. If you're a first-time home buyer and you're like the point person, you're taking all that in. But sometimes a friend or family member can be a very valuable person to have with you, because they're not paying a mortgage and don't have the intensity of the situation bearing upon them. So they can typically receive the information a little bit easier. And also, if somebody's, let's say a parent oftentimes has owned a home. So I always view knowledge as an upside down pyramid, and you fill that point in, that parent has filled those points and has a little bit of depth to draw upon. So if we talk about a Boeing brick front on a row home, a parent may have some understanding of that, whereas you as a first-time home buyer may not be too familiar with what the meaning or significance of that is. So like I said, the purpose is to understand the condition of the home when we're done the inspection. And it's important to be realistic because there's always going to be some things wrong. I view a home inspection as though I'm an interpreter. The house tells me the problems, and I've been doing this, so I understand what the house tells me. Then I just have to convey that to you as the home buyer so that you have an understanding of it. And I think I've noticed over the years, I think I try to teach too much sometimes. So I take the time and I'll explain it to you, why it's a problem, give you pragmatic examples, things of that nature.
Can I cut in, Harris?
Sure.
The real estate agent will be here also. So unless something crazy happens, one of our team members will always be with you on your home inspection, also interpreting. So if you've ever seen Office Space, there's the person who talks to the engineers and then talks to the people, because the engineer can't always talk directly to the people. So while Harris is interpreting for the house, we are sometimes helping interpret for Harris.
Yeah, which is helpful. It's very helpful. Yeah, and if I'm doing an inspection with you and you're not sure what I'm saying, just slow me down and I'll go over it until you get it. At the end of the inspection, I'll ask you, do you feel like you understand the condition of the home? Because that is the purpose. And once in a blue moon, people say no. They do. And I say, okay, let's stop here and let's go back over, where you're not feeling warm and fuzzy. And then we'll get it to that point. It's a big investment and people can understandably be, nervous and uptight about, putting all those resources into something. Nobody wants to get stuck with a problem. Some of the items that we'll look for in, let's say, South Philadelphia, one of the most common things that's of significance is a bowed brick front. And what that means is, a lot of these homes are about 100 years old and nothing lasts forever. And you get a wall that starts vertical in the beginning and then over time it starts to bow outward. And so it needs a little bit of help. And hopefully it's not at a point where it can't be helped. And that's usually the case. Usually it can be helped. So, and that would basically be in the form of reinforcement. So we'll see. And there is no limit to the list of things that can be found with things wrong. So, but both brick fronts are common. I like to say there's two roofs in South Philadelphia: new roofs and roofs that are in the fourth quarter of their functional lives. It really seems to play out a lot of times that way. I always find it a little shocking sometimes when I see something that's in between. So you'll hear me preach a lot about exterior water management. It's all about managing the water on the outside. I like to say there's three things that cause structural problems or problems in general: water, water, and water. So it's about controlling the water. And what's that? Yeah, rainwater and groundwater, right? And there can be a distinction between the two. Rainwater, well, to back up a second, the rain should come on the roof, hit the wall, come down onto the ground. And once it hits the ground, it should flow away from the home, similar to people pouring a gallon of water out, which should just flow away from the home naturally. So what happens is when it doesn't flow away from the home, it'll, everybody views, not everybody, but a lot of people view cinder blocks as something where nothing can pass through. But water does pass through a cinder block. It also passes through stone walls. The only thing that's really impervious to water infiltration is concrete. And there's not too many concrete foundations in it. So other than new homes do have the concrete. They're better because they're stronger and resist the water infiltration. So it's very important to see proper water management on the outside. I recently did a home in the suburbs that had a stucco front, and they had a stucco inspection before I got there, which was quite helpful. One of the better stucco inspections that I've seen. And they documented that where the roof intersects the wall as the home's designed, water enters into that intersection. And then what happened was they went about halfway down the wall and they found rotted, it's called sheathing, which is like a plywood behind the siding. And so that was bad. And when I was in the basement, I found water damage at the bottom of that. So the whole vertical portion of that was rotted. So it's important to keep control of the water. And if you keep a good roof on your home, that's the first start. keep a good roof, and then manage the groundwater. So, and that's where the separation between rain, comes from the sky, but once it touches the ground, it's called groundwater. And that biggest distinction actually might come more in the insurance industry, because they'll cover rain infiltration a lot of times, but they won't cover groundwater problems. So that's why there's a little bit of distinction. So once it hits that ground or the concrete, it should flow away from the home. And if it doesn't, it'll come into your foundation. So I'm sorry, yes.
Oh, on a lot of these older homes, is it reasonable or unreasonable to think that they might have things like French drains or any kind of water management system that came with the house originally? Is that?
Well, when the homes were built originally, they did not have this type of technology typically in place, so it doesn't exist. Today, if you build a home, you're actually required to put an exterior French drain in and an interior French drain. So I don't know if the city of Philadelphia requires that. There's building codes that are national, but Philadelphia is a very unique city, being one of the oldest cities in the country. So for example, an easy example is a hallway. So today, if you build a new home, the hallway will be 3 feet wide. But now if you do, let's say, a significant rehab on a home, if you make the hallway 3 feet wide, you get a 2 foot wide bedroom. So it's not really practical. So Philadelphia might say, okay, we'll allow you to go down to 24 inches. So that's how it'll be a little bit different from Philadelphia. To come back to the question, there's typically not French drain systems. I also don't care for French drain systems because they deal with the water issue after it's dripped down your basement wall. And when it's dripped down your basement wall, the one thing that you'll know is that the water is already underneath the foundation wall, that soil beneath that foundation wall is wet. And we all know when we stand on wet soil, we sink. We stand on dry soil, it's very stable. So you want that's the reason for keeping that soil as dry as reasonably possible. On rare occasion, I'll come across something in an old suburban home where it's very pieced up. They've addition, and I'll see a vertical piece of dry soil, and it looks like it's been there for like 40 years. Point being that when the soil is kept dry, it's very, very stable, and that's why I encourage proper water management all the time. To the point where putting plastic down on the ground, if it's feasible. I know the city is more concrete, but let's say a Northeast Philadelphia home, for example, where there is some soil around, plastic underneath the soil or even on top, however you want that kind of skin, you want to get that water away. Gutter extensions, very helpful. And I always recommend that the exterior cladding, which is siding, be caulked. And that's silicone, for example. And even that's changed. There's been, I'd say, pretty significant changes recently in building components. So silicone was thought to be the best, but it's changed now. There's other things, products that are out there that are as good or better. One of them being, let's say, polyurethane. It's a very durable, strong material that hardens up and keeps the area well sealed. How am I doing on time? 7 minutes left. All right.
I'll butt in.
Yeah.
So I have clients who were just settled on a house where the basement was constantly moist. We've never been there when it rained, but they know that when it rains hard, they're either going to FaceTime me or I'm going to go over to the house so that we can see where water is pooling. So we can then, if we see water that's pooling sometimes between the steps and the wall, like there might be water that can't make it around the step to the drain. And so we can then determine maybe water sinking into the ground, hitting the ground, getting trapped there as opposed to running away from the property. So like I said before, we're with you through the, even after you settle, so we can come over, look for, potential issues when it's raining if we don't get that opportunity during the contract time.
Yeah. And one of the things that I'll encourage people to do also is walk around the home with an umbrella when it's raining. Well, row home might be different, but if there's grounds around, so that the water can tell you which way it's going and why, and then you can take appropriate action. So otherwise, most people are guessing. And I do the same thing in my home, is I want to see where the water's going. That allows me to put effective solutions in place. So it's a pretty important part of it. One thing that I would add is I'm a pretty straightforward inspector. I do my thing to the best of my ability, never perfect, but I do try. And there's times when I'll inspect with Capri's team and it's a mess. It's just a giant mess. And so
You mean the property?
the property, yes, yeah, the property is a giant mess. So I believe to Capri and her team's credit that they're willing to say, look, I'll spend the time to find you a better spot that suits your needs better, that you're not going to have all these problems. And Capri's known this, it's happened many times during our years of working together. And some agents don't feel that way. Some agents want, I say it all the time, Stevie Wonder to come out and look at your home. And he's a great music composer, but he stinks as a home inspector. So that's important to have somebody you can believe is doing a good job. And there's a couple more things I would add, is there's kind of like two types of home inspections. One is what I call a walk and talk, where you and I would walk through the property. And then the other type is some agents, like a home inspector better, that will just go out there on their own and just inspect, and then you get a report. I really think that's a bad idea. It's bad on a few levels. It's bad because you're going to pick up this report and then you're going to dissect every word that you read. And it's not really meant to stand up to that scrutiny. It's also bad because the purpose of the inspection is to understand the condition of the home. And how are you going to do that when you just pick up this report? But when you have a conversation. So I recently inspected they had a front porch, and they're supposed to have, on the header, supposed to be 2 boards that go from column to column, but they had 2 boards, but one of them had a seam in the middle. So effectively, they only have 1 board. So of course, I have to recommend the proper course of action take place. But the reality is it wasn't terribly significant. And the reason it wasn't terribly significant is because the porch was relatively, not very deep, relatively small area. So that's why the verbal is so important. It really helps you get a much better understanding. And of course, you can ask questions. What's the significance of that? It's a huge question. Sometimes I find I've seen discussion threads where the one I'm thinking of is there was an end cap missing from gas pipe. And one person said it was a huge significant problem. And yet another person said it was not a problem at all. And what the answer truly is that it has the potential to be a huge significant problem, but the fix is relatively inexpensive and easy by just screwing an end cap in. So that's where the discussions are so important, that a walk and talk be a better, and really, I think, the only way to conduct a home inspection. Another aspect to think about that, how the inspection is conducted, is how much you're going to remember, right? Because you want to understand the condition. And if you pick up the report and read it, I'm going to send you a report too, and you can come back to that and analyze it as much as you want. But if somebody tells you something, you might remember 30%, and then if you read something or have a discussion about it, you might remember 60%. So that's what we're trying to do, is get your understanding up, that when you're done and walk away, that you have a good understanding and you're comfortable. So I think there's no better way to do that than to walk through it and talk about it. Anybody have any questions beyond?
Can I make a suggestion for maybe you to mention, because I know the first time everyone got super scared of, in this crazy market, people were waiving inspections. Can you talk about that?
Yes, I mean, especially in the suburbs, people were waiving home inspections, and we never recommend that. We would prefer, especially because we work with so many buyers, we would prefer to not put that kind of pressure on you. So if you're competing against another property that you really want, but in order to get that, you have to waive a home inspection. That's something that we would never recommend. And there are opportunities where you could do a home inspection ahead of time, quickly, if the scenario is right. And so your actual offer will be not contingent on a home inspection because you've already done one. But I always say I don't believe in whimsical bullshit unless it comes to real estate. So if you don't get a property, it was because you weren't supposed to have it. Or maybe the way you get it is kind of weird. I mean, Harris and I have had clients where she did 4 home inspections before she actually settled on the property that she got. And that was because her budget was low and a lot of the homes needed work. But the one that she has, she's still in. It's a fantastic investment. And so, or a deal falls apart and then it gets back together somewhere else. And so you're gonna get the house that you should have. And it just might take longer to get there in certain markets, but I don't think that, I mean, team, am I missing anything about waiving home inspections? You could do home inspection deductibles, so if you have some extra cash, we could say, like, listen, we're gonna add up all the issues, and unless anything costs more than $5,000 to repair, we will not ask for any small things. So there's ways around it that we can make our offers strong. Anything I'm missing, Neil?
Just that, the only time that would come up is if it was a multiple offer situation. So if you're competing with other people who are also making offers, you're trying to figure out a way to make your offer stand out and, beat the competition essentially. But to Capri's point, the way to do that, there are ways to improve your offer and make it more attractive, but waiving the home inspection is not one that we would recommend. I mean, you're spending more money than you've ever spent on anything probably in your whole life. And to just go in blindly without understanding the condition of the home is a huge risk. I mean, a lot of real estate is risk versus reward, but that's a risk that I wouldn't feel comfortable any of my clients taking. And then hear from them 2 or 3 years later going, oh my God, you won't believe what's going on at the house. I had to do this. And it's like, because you didn't have the opportunity to identify any of those problems ahead of time. And that's the point of the home. You want to understand the condition of the home before you purchase it, rather than finding out what's wrong with it after you purchase it and have to, expense after expense and bill and repair. It's like, well, if we would have known what was the condition before you bought it going in, then you could have budgeted for those things. Or you could have said, you know what, I can't afford to maintain this property or repair it, so I have to do something else, and you terminate the deal. That's the point of going in, is it's like a Carfax report for the home.
And like some agents will say, well, if it's new construction, you don't have to do a home inspection, but new construction is sometimes worse than a 200-year-old home in many cases. And so, especially with the regulations in Philly, particularly being so lax. So I think that, if somebody says you don't have to do a home inspection, I would question them.
Yeah, totally agree. I had a person call me who bought a home in Mount Holly, and it was from 1870. And he wanted me to come do it after they bought it, do the home inspection. I didn't want to do it because I know where it's going to go. I've inspected homes from that time period, and I knew it's just going to be a mess. And then people are going to be upset, and understandably, whatever the case may be. And it just seemed to be a difficult situation that was avoidable. That was just easier to not, get drugged through, if you will. So yeah, I think maybe if it's a 2-year-old condo in a high rise, okay, you could consider waiving something like that. But anything other than
Even then, though, all those condos had like the bad electrical boxes. Remember?
Yes, that's true. You're right. There's always pitfalls. One way to look at an inspection is that it reduces your risk. It's a question of risk versus reward. So, people talk about sometimes, what about a sewer line inspection? Of course, I'm always going to encourage inspections and not discourage them. But, for $300 to $350, you can get an understanding of your sewer line, which might be, say, a $10,000 bill. You reduce your risk. So home inspection, it's never going to be perfect, but you reduce your risk. You have the major issues identified and an understanding of them. And then you have the understanding, and then you can become comfortable with what's before you. So it's about reducing risk, and that's one of the major aspects of home inspection.
I have one more question.
Sure.
Can you think of something off the top of your head that was like the most interesting or the most weird thing you've ever seen?
I could think of,
Client.
I did, the most weird thing I ever saw was, actually I was doing an insurance inspection. I was driving around North Jersey after Hurricane Irene, and all the basements were flooded. So I get to this one guy's basement, and the water was about up to my hips. So I couldn't even go in there. So I went to the next appointment, and that guy had a set of hip waders. I said, hey, do you mind if I borrow them? And then drop them back off. He said, sure. So I go back to the first home, and I'm walking through this basement. I learned I should know, but when you're walking through water that's high, you don't have quite the control you do when you're just walking through air. So I didn't see a step in the basement, and I stepped down. I'm still okay, but then when I looked down, like where I thought I was going, there was a mounted deer head with antlers on the ground. What the heck is that? So that was pretty weird. And another one, again, it's an insurance inspection. This was a suburban home, and you got a living room, you got a dining room. You walk in, you open the front door, it all looked normal, and it was on a slab with the concrete, all I saw was soil. And I'm like, it was shocking to me. Like, it was like a little puzzle. Like, what happened to all the stuff? But they were claiming that there were pipe problems, so they ripped out their concrete slabs. So
How
that
about the house that we had with all this, the little old lady,
denies.
all the switch blades and machetes everywhere throughout the home.
There's always weird things. To share. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Harris.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Wasn't that fun? So this is the portion of where I'll open it up to questions. If you out there have any questions as well, you can type them in or raise a hand or whatever. Feel free to holler out. Jess will keep an eye if you have any questions. For everybody here, any questions that we didn't answer?
Something I just forgot to mention because we were rushing. There is a first-time buyer grant for Philadelphia buyers if your income's under 78,000. It sometimes runs out of money, so you can, I haven't looked at the website recently, but it's if you're under 78,000, it's $10,000. You have to go take a class, and you want to do that before you go under contract. So we can send you the link for that.
Dennis was talking about there is a first-time home buyer grant. Sometimes you can write. Oh, so somebody's saying it's might already be closed.
Oh, sorry.
So it was only, I think it was only 300 people who could get the grant this last time. I thought it was like some very low number. So it might already be gone. So that's it. If you're here, you have to stay and eat and drink. If you are home, email us, reach out to us, get an appointment with us as quickly as possible. I know one of you on there already has an appointment with me, so I'll see you on Wednesday. And thank you all very much. See you, bye.